Okay, we'll make a start. So, past 2 days have been an excellent series of sessions, and I think as Stuart might have said earlier on, yesterday, I think he said something like, at the end of the day, I guess we're preaching to the converted, because we have an audience here that have come because they have a common interest in around electrical safety. And however, I always think that, as I also stressed yesterday, an alpha situation is low frequency. The event is always high consequence. Maybe some in this room, hands up, those of you in this room that have actually been impacted by an art flash yourselves. I'm expecting very low. Oh, wow. Probably surprised me a little bit. Tell me, hands up, those of you that know of someone that has been shocked, has received a significant shock or an art flash. Wow, that's really surprised me. The challenge I'd always raise, I guess, is what are we doing maybe to leverage the experiences that we've had and the knowledge we've had of those particular individuals, or do we encourage those particular individuals to speak out? I see some excellent work being done these days. I think the Safety On recently, for example, Safety On being one of the wind industries kind of association set on by Energy Institute. They've been, I think, gone through a hand protection campaign, for example, so they've used someone who's been impacted by a hand injury, leveraged his story from a video to raise that awareness, which I think is excellent. And that's really the purpose of, I wanted to use this opportunity to share with you a story. We've been working with a gentleman and his wife, and I think the story I'd like to share here now, which I'll play, is incredibly impactful.
I left home at normal time, about 7 in the morning. We travelled up to London like any other day, not knowing that this day was going to change the rest of my life. The first half an hour as I got on site, I spent quite a lot of time scanning the area. So after doing the CAT scanning and the markup, I said to the guys, right, we're now going to cut out the tarmac section. When I was going to cut the tarmac, I put my boots on. I was putting all my PPE on. So I had my overalls that were on, done them up round the waist because I wasn't digging at that point. Used my ear defenders, my mask, and I cut out the area that I had marked. So after taking the tarmac crust off, I decided that we was going to dig it by hand because we had found some surfaces when I was scanning. It was the best and safest way to do this. Breaking out the ground was fine, digging the ground was fine, but everything changed within 10 minutes. So we dug down to the clay pipe. I found the clay connection and I found 2 sections of pipe. But for some reason, my core drill wasn't in the van that day or in the lorry. So I decided to stitch drill it with a normal SDS piece in a cordless drill. When I was doing this, the last hole started to bite. And what I didn't want to do is break the drain in case I couldn't use that drain because we would have just repaired it. I remember drilling down. And thinking, there's something hard there. Then it went bang. I drilled through the 11,000 volt cable.
So we're driving in the car to go and see our friends. All of a sudden, I get a phone call to say that Matt's had an accident, and it was Matt's friend Andy to say he's had an accident on site. He's been taken to hospital. He's gone up in a ball of flames. He's lost half his face. He's lost both his hands. I just went into a complete panic. It was about 12:30 in the afternoon, and the next thing I heard was this almighty scream in the background, and I knew that was Matt. It's a scream that will stay with me forever. It will never go away. So my friend Donna said to me, right, leave Yasmin with me. I contacted my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law. We met on the way. We hit every single red light. We hit every traffic jam going on the way. It took us what seemed to be an eternity to finally get to the Chelsea and Westminster.
I just didn't know what happened. But I remember looking at my hands, and I looked at my hands and I thought, I can't use those to get out of the hole. I was in the trench, I put my elbows up on the side of the trench, and I kept on swinging my legs. And I swung my legs up for the third time and I managed to get my foot on the edge of the concrete. And I remember rolling, just kept on rolling to put myself out. I never stood up again after that moment. I was just on the floor. The inside of my fingers, every one of them, it just like someone had cut them with a scalpel. And the skin was falling off my hands. Within 7 minutes, the helicopter was over the top of me. Then I remember them giving me a thumbs up, and I'm thinking, is she doing this to me? The thumbs up meant help was coming. So they managed to land the helicopter about 55 metres away from my position I was laying in. I was told after the helicopter was down that it was one of those landings they really didn't want to do because it was very close to being unsafe. But they realised by looking at me, they could see my hands, face, everything was burnt. And then it must have been 5-10 minutes have gone past after the helicopter's gone away and then landed. Now I remember all these red suits coming around me.
I was with one set of in-laws travelling up, and when I arrived at the Chelsea in Westminster, my other set of in-laws were there. Matt's sister had been sitting with him because obviously he didn't have anybody with him at the time. They came out to me. They took me in to see him. It was just something that just tubes in your mouth. Just didn't look like the same person. It wasn't my husband. They gave me his possessions, they gave me his belongings, they gave me his clothes, they gave me his money, they gave me his jewellery. And he was in coma. He stayed in that coma for a good, I don't even know how long. But I remember his sister sitting there with him, and she told me that she sat with him and she spoke to him. And then I finally got to go in and see him, and he was still unconscious at that time. He finally came round, and I was just glad that he was alive.
I don't actually remember waking up, and I don't really remember anything for about a couple of days. Don't know if it was the drugs or just the shock and trauma. But I remember every day I would phone Sarah and see what time she was coming because I hated being away from home. I didn't come to terms with the injury for a long time. It was probably a good couple of weeks until I actually looked in the mirror to see my own face. And I remember twice saving up enough tablets to try and take my own life.
I'm going to stop the video. There's more to the video. And Matt and Sarah have, I would say, have braved today. They're here in the audience. They're going to come up on stage and they're going to share the story with us and the impact that these particular incidents have. And I can tell you what it costs them to bring the story to us. And so if you can give them a round of applause, Matt and Sarah, if you can come up, we'd really appreciate it. Matt, as I said, the good news is you're here to tell the story.
I don't think some people will agree with that. I started off at the age of 17. I was quite a delinquent. I was probably going the wrong way in life. So I joined the British Army. I served for 7 years. And I think when this happened, it made it worse for me because Sarah had to look after me. So let's set the scene. I left normal work time, Saturday, 16th of March, 7 o'clock. Drove the lorry to site. I had my best mate that used to work with me, and I had a labourer. As I said on the video, I scanned the area thoroughly. It would have been stupid of me to break ground and not scan. Done this job thousands of times, drainage connection. It was simple work. So I decided when I found the clay, I wasn't going to use the machine that I'd taken to dig the site. I made the conscious decision of digging it by hand to make sure that we was always working to our safety system. And at that time, I had my overalls done up. I had sleeves down. But once I found that clay drain, I didn't see a risk anymore. The drain was in shingle. There was no sand, there was no membrane, there was no marker tape, there was no marker blocks above it. So to me it was a drain, and it was a simple markup. I was stitch drilling to tip dye into the sewer, to check the sewer to make sure it was the right sewer to connect a foul drain to. That day I didn't have my core drill. Normally I would have core drilled it, but I decided to stitch drill it. When I was doing the last hole, the clay part in the middle started to spin, and because I'm a tight plumber, I didn't want to break out the drain if I didn't need to, so I was just going to use a lead flashing over the top if I couldn't use that drain. Unfortunately, it went bang. Still remember it now. At that time, I was standing in that trench, and you can see on the left-hand picture, you can see on the edges of the trench the burn mark. So I was standing right beside that, but at the time when it went bang, I was directly over there, drilling like this in this position. Unfortunately, I had done my overalls up around my waist, didn't have a flame retardant t-shirt on, and I caught fire. First thing for me as a squaddy, drop, roll, get yourself out. I'd done that. Don't know how, don't know why. My best mate went to try and help me, and I remember telling him not to touch me because I was frightened I was going to hurt him. At that time, I knew that it was electric, but I didn't know how bad I was. So just to put a bit of context onto it, it came into my right hand through the drill finger. It came into the trigger, went through up my arm. Normally it would go across straight to your heart. Because I was ex-military, I also worked part-time on the door, I was quite a size. That possibly saved my life because it decided to go down the spine, around my belly button, it jumped into my hip, and it came out my thigh. I had safety rigger boots on. Thankfully I had my rigger boots on because I would have been without a right foot. It found the easiest ways to earth. When it was investigated, it was actually a piece of flint in the trench wall that made the arc go into the ground, finding earth. I remember the helicopter coming over the top of me, and I remember every day I've worked in London, I always used to drive up the A13, look at the helipad, and think, oh my God, what a service, how lucky we are. Never knew that one day I was going to use that service. And when the helicopter was flying above me, they opened the door and they stuck their thumb out, and like as if to say, yeah, we're coming down. Luckily for me, at the scene there was an off-duty fireman, and the fireman's mum was visiting him, and she was a sister of the emergency department at Whitechapel. Fortunately for them, they were there, they helped look after me until the helicopter landed. Remember when the helicopter landed, a lot of drugs. I remember the ketamine going in. And then I thought I was Lee Evans. The ketamine's rolling lovely. I thought I was a superstar. So they said they was going to transfer me onto the stretcher, and then they're going to pick up the stretcher and take it over the trench that I just dug. So me thinking I'm Lee Evans, I've said, don't bury me in my own trench. I haven't dug my own grave. Well, Paul Broadway, the paramedic who was looking after me, he said, Matt, you shouldn't even be alive. Just shut up. And then I realised why. I had a blister in the roof of my mouth, I had a blister on my tongue, and I was breathing through about 2 millimetres either side of my tongue. By that time, I knew I probably weren't going to see Sarah. So I told my best mate, just tell Sarah I loved her, and I'm sorry. That was horrendous. In a way, I still hold myself responsible for what I did and what I've put Sarah through. But to be very honest with you, it's made us better. It's made us better as a husband and wife. Sarah had to do a heck of a lot for me in my recovery. And being an ex-squaddy, I was a hard-hard bastard. But when she had to wipe my arse every day, I knew this was the woman for me. So, thank you, Sarah.
This accident happened 22 years ago, 16th of March 2002. Matt and I had been married 18 months?
9 months.
9 months. Our daughter was 18 months old. As a young, newlywed couple with a young daughter, not what you expect to happen at all. I'll never forget that day. It's burned in my brain forever. The noise that I heard from Matt will be burned in my brain forever.
It was shocking, wasn't it?
It was shocking, Matthew. Yes, it was shocking.
Sorry.
I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy anybody to receive that phone call to tell you that your loved one may never come home again. Matt was transferred by the helicopter to Chelsea and Westminster. We live close to Southend, so it's only about 40 minutes, an hour away from London. It felt like a day trying to get to the Chelsea and Westminster. My parents were at the Birmingham NEC. His dad was in Peterborough, and they both made it to the Chelsea and Westminster before I got from Southend to the Chelsea and Westminster. I was fortunate that day that Matt's sister was in there with him when I arrived. Horrific day. Every red light that you can think of on the way. All these stories, you're getting different stories from different people. You don't know what you're going to be walking into. You don't know what you're facing. Being in a coma, so I had him transferred from Chelsea and Westminster to Broomfield in Chelmsford, where they could perform all Matt's plastic surgery. Personally, I don't like London. I don't feel safe in London, and I hated travelling across the tube every night to go and visit Matt to get home, and that's why I wanted him transferred closer to home.
But also for me, I used to wait for Sarah's call to say she was leaving home, and I'd be on tenterhooks right until that moment I see her, because I knew it was terrifying her to have to do this on her own.
When Matt went to work that day and he didn't come home for 6 weeks, I didn't know if he was ever going to come home again, to be honest. When I saw him that first day, unconscious, full of tubes, and the nurses, they hand you someone's belongings, and that's what you get given, and you don't know what the outcome is. In a way, I'm grateful that it happened because it made us closer, it brought us stronger together. But even now, 22 years later, every day is a struggle. Every day Matt wakes up, he has to deal with what's going on in his head. He went to a very dark place for 10 years. He had to recover himself mentally and physically. People look at him now and you wouldn't even know that he was a burn survivor. We don't call him a victim because he's not a victim, he's a survivor. To look at him now, you wouldn't know that, but as you saw from the photos, the burns were very severe.
I also live in chronic pain, so I have a nerve imbalance, like Lee Evans, so I have hyperhidrosis to all of my upper body, so I profusely sweat. And sometimes it gets embarrassing. I used to go for interviews and I'd forever be wiping my hand down my leg because I was embarrassed about having the wet hand. And I didn't want to have to explain to people why I've got wet hands because I didn't want them to feel sorry for me.
I'm fortunate that Matt comes from a big family, so I had plenty of family support there for me to look after me and to look after our daughter. If I didn't have that, things could have gone a completely different way. We're very lucky in the respect that we had a big network around us of family. I did everything from Matt. I cut his food up for him, I prepped his meals, I did his personal care for him. The only thing I wouldn't do was change his dressings. Fortunately, Matt's mum is an ex-paramedic, so she would come over and she would change his dressings and she would get the abuse that came with it verbally because Matt was in so much pain. When they put the skin grafts on his hands, he had 200 staples, 100 staples in this hand, 100 staples in this hand. He was in a really lot of pain every day, morphined up to the eyeballs, didn't know whether it was morning, noon or night, didn't know what was going on.
So now I still take a lot of medication. The medication I take is all opiate based for chronic pain and for the nerve damage. This causes me a problem as a health and safety professional on site. How can I have a high opiate level when we tell everybody on site you can't be under the influence of drugs? So we've had to manage my drugs. So I take all my opiate drugs at night now. So I get my high opiate level. Recently I've just been put onto a cannabis program. And the cannabis is a cannabis oil with THC. Now it's been amazing for the fact of my flashbacks. I do not suffer with night tremors since I've been on this medication. I sleep all the way through, but for 18 years, I still used to get night tremors. And some nights I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I feel pain between my fingertip and my elbow. And that's just my mind telling me I've been hurt again. But I knew I hadn't.
It was so sensitive that the trigger finger, if you placed a cotton wool ball on Matt's finger, it was as if he was putting wire wool on the finger. The nerves were so damaged. He now has a spinal implant that was fitted to help with the nerve damage that's been caused. Every day is a struggle, like I say, but we have our coping mechanisms, we have our ways of dealing with it. We have the support around us that if we need it.
One thing I want to say about the charity who helped me, London's Air Ambulance was here today and yesterday to serve you all. London's Air Ambulance doesn't distinguish if you're a guest, a person that lives in London, or somebody that's just commuting through. So all I would ask, if you ever see one of our collection tins, please put something in the tin. This year we need to replace 2 helicopters. We need £15 million. We are just under 11 million. We need to replace these helicopters because, like other guys on site now, there will be others in the future. But what I do as an advocate for London's Air Ambulance is I tell people this story because I need people to realise every air ambulance that's in the country is a charity. And without that helicopter coming to me that day, I would have lost my life in the back of an ambulance because there was no doctor there to put me to sleep.
That day that the accident happened, the helicopter had actually already been called out to another job and it had actually landed for another job. Fortunately for us, that job wasn't as serious as Matt's job because had we had to rely on that land ambulance, he wouldn't be sitting here today. He would have died on the scene and that would have been the end of that.
You've got a commemoration to them, have you not?
Sorry?
You've got a commemoration to them, have you not?
Yes. So what can you do for people that give you life? So I'm fully tattooed. So what I had done, this is the air badge of the London Air Ambulance Service. I'd like to introduce you to Tim Harris, who's now Professor Harris, and Paul Broadway. This was the medic and the doctor that saved my life. The day that I went up to the helipad to show these people, I had this doctor in tears saying to me he's never had something so touching from a patient. So I give my time to London's Air Ambulance and talk about it as a survivor. And that's my giving back to them. I can't give them enough money in the world to save my life.
Had Matt not worn the PPE that he wore that day, it could have been a hell of a lot worse. I was fortunate that he had his safety boots on because obviously with the electric it has to find somewhere to exit your body. So obviously it exited on Matt's right thigh, and when he was taken to the Chelsea and Westminster they actually thought he'd been shot in the leg because it looked like a gunshot. It was a perfect 9mm hole that had come out, so it had travelled across the body and come out of the leg.
So when we first caught up with Matt, you'd never shared your story before, had you?
No.
And he was happy to tell the story, and we said, look, this would be a good opportunity for us to create something. You were brave enough to tell your story. And he said he would do, and he said he'd like to do it for the air ambulance. And so I'm putting forward as an individual, Matt, I'm suggesting to the audience, Matt and Sarah Nice, for you to consider them for any kind of safety stand-down days. And Matt was, well, you know, I don't want to turn it into any kind of commercial enterprise. Well, if you've given up your time, and I said, the impact of the story, but he said, what I'll do, he said, I'd like to do it for the London Air Ambulance. I think that just shows you as well, just the selflessness of Matt and his journey of saving lives. You can see, as we've already experienced today, what they've been through to come on stage, particularly his wife. You don't mind me giving a particular shout out for your wife, do you, Matt?
No.
This is only the third time in 22 years that I've sat in front of an audience and spoke about this. Watching that video, standing over there, brought me to tears. It still does every single day. It takes me straight back to where we were 22 years ago. It always will. It's something that, it's a life-changing injury that you never get over. You have to find a way to cope every single day.
But I am one of the lucky ones. Most people that have a life-changing injury don't have family support. Normally the first person that runs away is
The wife.
the wife or the husband because they can't cope. Thankful to Sarah. I love her dearly. She didn't run away. And
Don't get
she's
me
my
wrong,
rock.
it's not been easy. It's been hard. It's been extremely hard.
I don't know why she puts up with me. I really don't. But
Cheers for Sarah.
Thank you. It's just hard when you watch someone that you love so much in such a dark, dark place, in such a deep depression, and you don't know what to do to help them. It doesn't matter what you say or what you do, it doesn't make a difference. That individual themselves has to find it within themselves to want to carry on with their life. I will stick by Matt, by thick or thin, no matter what. We are a team and we are together, and I'm fortunate that we are still together, and in 2 years' time we've been together for 30 years, so we must be doing something right.
or I earn a lot of money.
Thank you, Matt and Sarah, for sharing those experiences. And every one of you should have, in the guide packs, there's like kind of some details if you want to reach out to Matt and Sarah. The video is also available. But I think the key thing from the learnings we've all had today, one of the challenges has been, you know, how do we overcome budget constraints? How do we overcome this? How do we overcome that? And I keep on stressing it around the awareness aspects of things, is that many may live in the world of finance, or they may live in the world of procurement, or they may live in a world far, far removed from the reality of what goes on the day-to-day basis. And there's surprising a number have put their hands up that have either witnessed an art flash or been impacted, and how in a moment of time a life can change forever. We repeat, don't we? These are low-frequency events with consequences that are far, far-reaching. Mr. Andrew Rimmer, you made a comment earlier on. Do you remember what that was again? Was that the fact about the mental impact that far is? Matt, you were telling a little story earlier on about using a cooker.
Yeah, so Matt won't use a cooker because obviously with a cooker you have your isolation switch on the wall, and sometimes that switch can spark. That's enough to set a flashback off and put Matt back down to his PTSD all over.
So that's
again.
why I don't cook.
And we, yeah, Matt's never cooked, by the way. He's never cooked, even before his accident. But we suffer every year on the 5th of November when it comes to fireworks. The white fireworks, the flash,
The bang.
the noise. Matt is like
Just to share with
Yeah.
you, 3 weeks ago I was in Ukraine. I go out to Ukraine as an ex-veteran. I started a charity with 3 other veterans in my local town, and we take humanitarian aid, and I drive ambulances from the UK to Ukraine. And I still put myself in the firing line sometimes. I probably go too far, but I feed 350 children a month out in Ukraine. I would never have done this before my injury. And the reason I do this is because I'm alive. And I want to make the most amount of impact I can. I feel my injury happened for a reason. I'm glad the injury happened to me. It's changed my life, it's changed my perceptions, it's changed everything about me, and I hope I'm a better person for it.
And Matt, you've changed my perception from the first time that I heard you, and I'd like to think that we have over 300 people departing this event with a life-changing experience in having heard through your experiences that you've had, and we can each take something away. We can share your story, we can share it with those that are around us, make people aware, and even if it's just every organisation, whether it's a 5 steps you follow through for isolation procedures, or whether it's putting on your insulated gloves because it's a bit of a hassle, or cutting a corner, if we can take away just one action from this event that we've been together for those 2 days, and the event's been worthwhile, and the stress that Matt and Sarah have been through, I like to think good stress because you've enjoyed telling your story, if that makes sense, and you'll go away feeling good, and I've got a few little prezzies out the back for you in thanks. But people will go away making a positive change, and that's the mission they're on, isn't it?
Yeah, we want you to see the real impact.
We don't want anyone to have to go through what we've gone through. We lost everything that day. We lost our home, we lost our business, we lost everything. Everything was a fight. Just for Matt to even be able to get a disability benefit from our government, we had to prove beyond means that he was disabled.
And I actually got no claim. When it went to court, I got misrepresented by my solicitor, and I won't say the company name, but it was read out in court that I'd done this for financial gain.
So they basically said
I drilled
that Matt
into
went
the
out
cable knowing it was there.
to blow himself out,
To
blow
get
himself
money.
up for financial
We only
gain.
put in for £126,000 compensation. I was out of work for 10 years. I'm glad I didn't get the money, because we've done great without it. But it's gave us drive to show people that not all accidents come out the same way.
With that, Matt and Sarah, thank you very, very much for joining us. Really appreciate that. Let's give it to Matt and Sarah. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. If you can just wait there, Matt and Sarah, I'll be with you in a few moments. So thank you all. So we're going to move on for the last and final session. I'd honestly recommend that you can, Matt's on social media as well, but it's, I want to do my bit for them. They've done my bit. They've come here, they've shared their story. They shared the story last year. And I just think it's a very impactful experience, particularly for maybe young apprentices, young electrical engineers, maybe someone who's done the job for the last 35 years, and just to have that reality check, the situations can happen. And as I've already said, with electrical incidents, typically you can't smell it, you can't see it. Maybe you can hear it occasionally, and in a moment of time, life can be changed forever. We're going to move on now, which I think is an excellent session that we're going to be moving into.